Parrots, please shut your video. Welcome, everybody. We'll be starting in 5 minutes. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. We'll be starting in exactly 3 minutes. Thank you for coming on time. We'll be starting momentarily. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming. We'll be starting momentarily. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. We will be starting the program in exactly 1 minute. Thank you for coming. We'll be starting in exactly 1 minute. Okay, welcome, everyone. 30 seconds. We'll be starting in 30 seconds. Shalom Aleichem, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming. Tonight's webinar is a special webinar that we put together due to this unprecedented COVID-19 situation that we find ourselves in. Hopefully, we're on our way out of it, but it's really something that has, in many people's lifetimes, there hasn't been such a situation as this, and it has brought new questions and new issues to the forefront of the things that people never had to deal with before. And we here at CHYE, in partnership with COL Live, we're committed to try to help you get the answers to the tough questions so that your business could succeed and can grow. And so we are honored tonight. We're going to be doing this special session in partnership, of course, with the JCC of Marine Park and EPI with Zisha Novoseller. We're presenting to you COVID-19 legal issues. And we have with us tonight, and I'll, by no means an exhaustive introduction, but to mixas shvacha befanov, Peretz Bronstein Esquire is a Harvard-trained lawyer who spent 10 years at one of the most prestigious law firms, Skadden and Arps. In 1996, he went on his own and started his own firm. He's focused on securities and consumer class action legal issues, but also as a community member. He is a confidant and a attorney to many small businesses on their legal issues. Peretz is a friend, somebody that I know for many years and has a tremendous reputation. And tonight we're going to discuss many legal issues that have come up as they pertain to small businesses. And at the end of this presentation, which will be approximately 20 to 25 minutes, we will do Q&A where you could pose your legal questions. Now, again, remember, and Peretz will say this himself, this is not, we're going to give general answers, to general ideas. But of course, if you're going to take a legal action, on this, please, double check with your personal lawyer. Or, this is meant to give you the general idea and framework, but in no means, if you have to act it out, you please get a direct consultation with a lawyer to make sure that, you do everything in the spirit and the letter of the law. So Peretz, welcome. Thank you so much. And the floor is yours.
Okay, good evening. Welcome, everybody. This COVID thing does create a number of important, pressing, difficult legal issues that I've been consulted. Most of my small business clients are Amazon merchants and real estate people, and mostly in Williamsburg and Crown Heights. So it's like the Alter Rebbe writes in the beginning of Tanya, how can he write a book to give personal spiritual advice to everybody? He says, well, you've been in my office, or a lot of you, so I know you personally. So I feel like I know everyone who's listening in personally based on many people I've had the opportunity to advise as business people. So I'm going to share the screen. Let's see, just put up my outline. You're sure it says disabled screen sharing?
Sorry, I will give you that right now. I will give you the screen share ability. Okay, you should see it right now.
Yes. Okay, is my outline up there? Somebody,
yes,
okay.
Yes.
I just want to say people can chat in questions, and let's say the last 5 minutes, I'll try to address some of them. So the first thing is, the number one is
One
just
second,
a little.
before you get started, for those of you listening, if you're posing questions to Peretz, put them in the Q&A, not in the chat. Put them in the
Okay.
Q&A. We'll try to respond to everybody as we.
And Yeshua correctly noted that, I'm not giving a particular legal advice to anyone. You have to go to your own lawyer if you want, real legal advice that you can rely on, that the lawyer is responsible for. So number one is description of our firm. So you know where to find us. There's the website. Number two, this PPP loan, these COVID small business loans that everybody, like all of Williamsburg and Crown Heights, are just up in arms to get that money that they need, many. So something that even myself and our business, why I didn't apply for it, is you have to represent that you have a true financial need for the money, that you're in dire straits, that you're underwater financially because of COVID. And it doesn't say what that means, the particular bit. Let's say Donald Trump, has 100 businesses or 1,000 businesses, and one of them is losing money. So he's a billionaire or multi-billionaire. Can he apply for a loan for the one business that's losing money, but he has to represent that he's in dire financial straits. So I think it can be read to mean that it means your total financial picture. So I spoke to someone I know was applying for one of these loans, and I spoke to a loan broker in Williamsburg, and the young woman, who was a good salesperson, was saying, "Oh, they don't check. Don't worry about that. They never check." So it reminded me years ago. I don't know, people, whoever's listening in remembers this, but they used to have something called a no income check mortgage, where let's say you needed a $50,000 income to get a particular mortgage loan, and you only earned $20,000. I'm using numbers from 25 years ago. And those loans, the bank wouldn't check. You would write down you earned 50, and the bank wouldn't check. No income check. It was a higher interest rate. Now, when the savings bank crisis came, and a lot of banks were going out of business because they had too many bad mortgages, people weren't paying because they didn't have the money, and the feds came in to take over the banks. They started investigating all these mortgage applications. Said, "Oh, you represented you had $50,000 income that year when you took the loan. Let me see your tax returns." So no, it's not. It's a no income check. Anyway, banks went down, like CEOs of small banks, savings and loans went down, and people were prosecuted. So it's the same thing here. We really don't know how the federal government will read this language. I'm in dire financial straits. I need a loan, for a person who has money from other sources. So let's just look at the. I copied some of the language from the application. Right, so this is the Paycheck Protection Program, borrower application form. Okay. You have to check the box and certify under oath that current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support the ongoing operations of the applicant. So the applicant is a particular business, a particular corporation, but it gives a general statement. And I myself, like whether my own business, we had less income during COVID and would apply for this, but I was concerned representing that, because I do other cases from different sources to make this representation. And just to note what's at stake here, you have to certify that I don't know how to move this thing. I certify that the information provided in this application, skipping, is true and accurate in all material respects. I understand that if making a false statement to obtain a guaranteed loan from SBA is punishable under the law, imprisonment not more, it's only 5 years, and a fine of only $250,000. And then another jail time, 2 years, and a fine not more $1 million. So this is like, and then what happens here is when the federal government starts sending out, the U.S. attorney subpoenas to people where they think, well, that guy looks like rich to me, and I want to see how he got the small business loan. And then people scurry to lawyers, and you got to pay a big retainer, and it's not so much fun anymore. So I'd like to be positive with clients and not scare them off, etc. But I would just caution everybody and urge everyone to be very careful before they sign this certification of true financial need for a PPP loan before submitting it, because it's a statement under oath that has to be true in all respects. Let's go back to the. That's number one. Issue number two. This is kind of interesting. So I got a call from a young man in Williamsburg who's an Amazon dealer, and he was like right when COVID started. I don't know what it was, Perel or face masks. I don't know exactly how you do it in Amazon, but you just like jacking up the price and see if you get the buy box. I don't know. Again, I don't know exactly how it works, but saw that he was able to sell masks for like 500%. If a box of masks was $5, he's able to sell it for $50, $75. Great. I mean, that's a business person's dream. Costs remain the same and price skyrockets. So but people started complaining, and it's not fair. You jacked up the price, and I need the face mask. So, I was asked, should he offer refunds or not? Okay, whatever I advised, it's not the point here. So then, like a week later, that person called me, and then Ed Rosenberg of the Amazon king, guru, great advisor at Amazon, started referring people to me who were getting letters from the Attorney General that they're being investigated, Attorney General of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, for price gouging. Price gouging means, and it's illegal in all 3 states, if there's some sort of a societal emergency, you're not allowed to suddenly raise the price to profit from people's desperation. So I'm not a criminal lawyer. I work with a criminal lawyer, a very highly skilled guy, a Yale graduate, former federal prosecutor, and New York Manhattan prosecutor. And so these people, we take like $5,000 up front, and then it's by the hour. He charges $500 an hour to deal with the Attorney General. And actually, a lot of them we've even without spending that $5,000, just a couple hours, have gotten rid of, because they stopped selling when there was a public emergency declared by the governors, or the cost went up, so it really wasn't so expensive if you look at the cost. But some people are on ongoing investigations for price gouging. So that's what I wrote at the last point on item 3. So if it's too good to be true, meaning if, wow, all of a sudden you can sell a $5 item for $100, think like 3 times, because people are paying all not all, but a lot of the profits they made could end up being spent on legal fees and giving refunds and paying potentially a fine. I think in New Jersey, it's $20,000 for the first violation, and then $10,000 for each. That means each sale. So every bottle of Purell sold on the internet for $100 is a $10,000 fine. So, people sold thousands of bottles. So if they had to pay $10,000 fine for every bottle, you could actually a little bit cut into the margins of selling Purell during COVID. So price gouging is something, again, in Ami magazine, they interviewed Ed Rosenberg, and he was saying that he advises people to stay away from what he calls I don't know if you use this term, I'm using it, tier 1 COVID items. The stuff that's really like life essential masks, Purell, Lysol wipes, because they're being scrutinized. Amazon is being scrutinized, and Amazon is scrutinizing their merchants for price and disclosure and all kinds of other stuff. So it may be a good idea to stay away from that stuff, or if you're going to sell it, to be very careful with the price. It shouldn't be even 10% price increase. 10% pricing increase is considered by, I know the New Jersey Attorney General's office told us, they consider a 10% sudden increase on prices of goods to be a violation of the anti-price gouging statute in New Jersey. Okay, next. Just looking at the time. Rent. I've heard, this is a good thing about going to shul, because you hear a lot of stuff. I was sitting next to a landlord in shul saying his tenants don't want to pay, and how he was trying to collect the rent, and from tenants that don't want to pay because they're not using their place. So and I had the same discussion that's ongoing with my own landlord. On the one hand, tenants couldn't use the place. I mean, we have space that we have, like, a room with 3 people in it, and you can't have more than one person, or you can't have anyone in the building. So why should you pay? You can't use this space. On the other hand, most commercial mortgage, almost every contract actually, has what they call a force majeure clause. Force majeure means a greater power, a greater force, something out of your control, like a hurricane. So these are the 2 competing provisions that you have in most commercial leases. On the one, and I'm going to show you, on the one hand, most leases say that if there's a fire or a hurricane or something that stops you from using the place, the landlord, you're excused from paying rent until the casualty event, it's what is known as a casualty event, is over. And if the landlord can't fix it, like within 6 months, you're excused from the lease. On the other hand, leases say force majeure, that if there's a force, something happens that out of the landlord's control, he's not responsible. So that would suggest that you have to pay rent because it's not the landlord's fault. He made the building available. It's not his fault that Cuomo won't let you use your office. So I've been advising people, I don't know which way it would go in court. There hasn't been much. This is only going to start now, especially since de Blasio stopped, what do you call it, eviction proceedings. But, maybe half. That's what I'm advising people, because there's a good argument not to pay rent and a good argument for the landlord to require rent. Okay. The next topic is, this is interesting. In our class action practice, where we're representing shareholders of corporations suing for fraud, or like we have a case against Honda for defective transmissions. So there's a big move among class action lawyers now. See, some people would say that, the class action lawyers are always jumping to make a buck when something bad happens, but I think they're always jumping to help humankind when their help is needed. So they take a third of the, so there's a lot of cases against universities, for instance, because the kids are like at home on Zoom, and a lot of the things in dormitories and sports and a lot of the things that are part of the university experience are not. So they want tuition abatements. This actually happened. Some of my own kids' yeshivas, debates between the parents. One yeshiva said, well, they can't have their dinner this year, so the parents should pay tuition even if the kids are out of yeshiva. So I didn't really understand the connection. I have an example of a lawsuit here. Let's see. Okay, I'm having trouble finding it, but it was a bunch of nurses, and they were going on a cruise and a nurse convention, and they all paid $1,800 each, and the organization won't give them a refund. So there's a big class action going on. I will say that my wife and I were about to go on a JLI retreat to Israel, and they did offer, to their credit, you could either put to next year or they would give refunds to people that asked for it. So, I mean, the basic law though is if somebody sells a service and they can't provide it, the consumer is entitled to a refund. Every case is a little bit different, as we discussed with real estate renting, but the general principle is, especially when you're dealing with a consumer, the law is very favorable to the consumer, more so than a commercial tenant as a business. But when you're dealing with consumers that paid you money, simple people, there's many consumer protection statutes that would require you to give a refund. Okay, the final thing I was going to mention, I don't know, this is a big thing now, and I don't know how relevant it is to the population of, let's say, Crown Heights, this is Crown Heights Young Entrepreneurs, business people, whether they have business interruption insurance to cover lost business revenue when there's a catastrophe. So some of the largest class action firms now, you go on the websites and see what they're advertising, are people who have been denied business interruption claims. And I don't know, again, I don't know if anyone here has business interruption insurance, but most of them say they'll only pay for physical damage to something, lost revenue that's caused by some physical event, like a fire or a hurricane. So the big debate there is whether COVID is caused by, is it a physical event? There's a virus, it exists, and it's attacking people. So why is that less physical than a fire? So that's the one of the issues being litigated over business interruption insurance. That's insurance we're talking about. People has insurance for lost revenue. The next issue that is being discussed in the courts over business interruption insurance claims is a lot of them do say that there's a sickness. Somehow COVID is not within the definition since it never happened before. There's like examples of illnesses, pandemics, society-wide illnesses, and COVID is not within the express that was actually mentioned. So the litigation is whether COVID is one of the illnesses, pandemics that's covered by the business interruption insurance. So if anybody, we're actually getting into this now. So if anyone has that issue, feel free to email or chat. Okay, it's 28 after Yeshua. Should I, let me see if there's any questions. How do I do this?
Okay, so first of all, I see somebody raised their hand. Let's for all of you that are participating now, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So there's a Q&A.
I should stop sharing. Okay.
Yeah, everyone has a Q&A section over here. If you have questions that you want to ask Parrots, particular legal things that are pertaining specifically to your business, please type your questions right now into the Q&A, and Parrots will address them. So, if you're having trouble finding the Q&A and you want to post your questions in the chat box, you could do that too. If that'll be easier for you, just go right ahead and send them over. While we're waiting for people to post questions, here's a question that I have for you, Parrots. Again, I'm sure we have to speak in a general sense. There's a big movement going on right now with there's a lot of retail stores here in Brooklyn. New York has been slow to open, and there's a lot of retail stores that, even though they're not essential businesses, they want to reopen. And there's like there's a whole movement going on right now.
Right. Yes.
I'm not quite sure. Let
me make a comment. Let me just make a comment about that. I have not researched the law, but I've been actually spending a lot of time debating it. I mean, when I first saw Mrs. Minkowitz's video, I was in a jewelry store, but which is, I mean, it's hard. Well, a lot of jewelry is pretty essential, but it's not, I don't think, within the definition. But then I found out, which seems so unfair, is like any big box store that sells food, they can also sell jewelry. So it's putting a jewelry store at terrible disadvantage. So it seems to me even unconstitutional, because you're not allowed to make unreasonable differentiations under the law. Because they could make Walmart not sell jewelry. I don't know if they sell jewelry, but whatever department store is selling food and jewelry. And then I was wondering, why can't then Mrs. Minkowitz just put a table with milk and eggs and bread in her jewelry store and then be essential? Again, I haven't researched it. I'm told it has to have already been, you have to already been selling essential goods before COVID. Anyway, it's very unfair. I agree with her. After learning more about it, it's outrageous to me.
And so, but what would you tell these store owners about what they should be doing?
I wasn't, often, like, not having researched something doesn't stop me from having an opinion. but I really can't give any legal advice because I haven't looked at it.
Okay, so we have 3 questions here. So question number 1, when do we fill out the PPP forgiveness form? After it's paid out or,
I don't, that question seems to be talking about how do you get the money? I was
no,
saying that,
at some point, the PPP, if you keep it correctly, it becomes, they
oh,
forgive it.
forgiven?
Yes.
You should speak to one of the brokers in, one of the brokers. It's not what I do.
Okay, can you please?
I've read the form, but I speak to a broker.
Okay, here's the next question. Can you please provide clear threshold conditions of who is qualified for a PPP loan?
Victor, I'm just saying Victor, because that's, can I just ask you a question? I see my name is all misspelled. Did I put that in or did you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, it's okay. I'm used to it, but just noting. Victor, I just want to tell you a story. When I started practicing law in 1988, I got a job at a big Manhattan law firm. And there was a lot of like expense accounts. People used to they had to work all night, go and buy themselves a suit the next morning on the client's account. So the senior partner told us, and it stuck with me, you can bill all your, if you're in the shower thinking about the case, bill the client, but just assume that someday everything you're doing and everything you're billing will be on the front page of the New York Times. And if you're embarrassed, don't do it. So the best advice I could give you on this is if you have, a person has to be honest with themselves. If you're really in dire financial straits, then I think it's okay. But if you're not, even if the money you have, I want to know what about if you have a couple and one has a high income, one has a more modest income, and do you have to consider and they file jointly. Anyway, I think that if you are not really without money, that you don't have money, like you have to go borrow money from people. If you're not in the you have to go borrow money situation, I think you're at risk doing this, and eventually they may come after people. And Fruma Yidden are at greater risk than others because the attitude people have, unfortunately, toward the Hasidic community. So just be careful. Use your gut.
Okay, so we have Max now. Max asks, how about if you have a personal guarantee on a lease?
You're saying no, he's concerned not paying rent because if he gets sued by the landlord, he has a personal guarantee. Well, I'm saying like the worst that happens, first you just try to negotiate with the landlord. And a lot of them got these PPP loans because they're not getting rent. And if you want to take it all the way, like to court, you're gonna have to pay. If you lose, you're gonna have to pay. That's the worst thing that's gonna happen. So if you have a personal guarantee, you're gonna eventually have to pay if you owe the money. But a judge might just say that you don't have to pay. I think you're likely to have the better argument of not paying. Although I haven't heard about judges ruling on this yet.
Okay, next
Rebecca.
question.
Let me read Rebecca's.
Okay, yes,
I have a
Rebecca.
relative with a restaurant and her lease expired and landlord refused to reduce the rent. We deferred the rent for 2 months and wants deferred payments to be paid this year. So she should just remain a holdover tenant right now? Isn't it not smart to renew a lease at this point? Wait, so she's at the end of the lease or it's expired? He doesn't want to renew, I assume that means at a lower rent. He's deferring for 2 months. First of all, I'm not advocating stiffing landlords, but if you want to, if there's no personal guarantee, there's not much the landlord can do. I got to tell you, Rebecca, I don't understand the facts enough. Because if it's a valuable business and you don't pay rent, the landlord can sue the restaurant if it has assets and equipment that it doesn't want to lose. So I would just say in general, in all these situations, if you're not going to pay rent and you're willing to go to, you just know that you may end up in court and you may win or you may lose. If you lose, you're going to have to pay and you may have to pay legal fees. I was really talking about trying to negotiate with the landlord because I don't really know how it's going to turn out if you go to court. Hey, I know him. Noah, what is he saying? When we have unemployment, I own a small brokerage. May I collect unemployment while my business is still making money? But I'm not paying myself. I had this myself. I have some 1099s working for me. Owner, I don't know. I looked myself. It was hard to figure out. I don't know the unemployment rules. that well. It's all online with this Department of Labor. So I'm sorry. If you
Who
wanna
could
give-
we turn him to over here? This is a
You know what the
serious-
problem, you see, unemployment, there are lawyers who do just unemployment claims. I just don't know. I have a guy. I have to think about it. Noah, you can email me. If I have someone to refer you to, I will. I'll look. I think I do.
Okay, for Jacob's question, yes. I'm a therapist. My office is very small. I don't have enough room to sit
Yeah.
6 feet from my patients. Can a patient sue me for operating so close? Can I break my lease with the landlord for this reason?
Okay. That's exactly what I was talking about, why I think you're entitled not to pay. I mean, if you have a small office and you can't have social distancing, it's impossible, and you rented it for a therapy office, I really think you have a strong argument not to pay rent till this is over. I mean, to sit in your office by yourself is useless to you. You got to see people. I would, if you're sitting too close, and someone gets COVID from you or something, God forbid, I think you shouldn't do it. You have potential. If you're dealing with someone that you think could actually sue you or report you, you shouldn't do it. You got to follow the social distancing. I don't even know if it's still in effect now. Is it? I think it is. If I take the SBA loan, can I close the business by the end of the year? This is Noam. Keep paying the loan privately. Well, I didn't look in this too closely, but I thought the loan can only be used for business expenses, like payroll and other approved business expenses. So, as long as you use this, is my understanding. To give you a really solid answer, I have to study it. But right now, what I understand is, as long as you use the money for permitted purposes, if your business closes, you went out of business, that's no problem. But you still have to pay it back, or you may get a forgiveness. That's the whole thing. They forgive for a lot of people. There's Rebecca again about the rent. Yeah, I understand. The lease is up. The landlord wants to raise your rent. And because you just stay as a holdover. I just want to say, if you stay as a holdover, if there's a personal guarantee, then individually, the personal guarantor can be smacked with the rent. And even if it's no personal guarantee, if it's a restaurant with value to it, it can also be hit with a judgment. So I think the way to do it is try to get to a judge as quickly as possible to see if a judge agrees you don't have to pay rent or not. I don't know if the restaurant's open.
Okay, here's a
Anyway,
question
you can email me, Rebecca, if you want to. You can find it online.
Okay, here's a question from Max. Can you get out of your lease if you have a personal guarantee and you're closing your business because you couldn't get PPP?
Max, what I'll tell you is as following. Most personal guarantees, like almost everyone I've ever seen on a lease, is called like a good guy guarantee. It only is in effect as long as you're in the space. Meaning is to stop the tenant, the corporate tenant that has no money, from staying there and not paying rent. But most of them, as soon as you clear out the place and you get out of there, most that I've seen, then the personal guarantor is off the hook. So usually the personal guarantee is not a problem as long as you don't try to stay there without paying rent, as long as you give the place back to the landlord.
Okay, so it looks like we've got to the end of the
Thank you,
Q&A.
folks. Good luck. Be
Yes, do you have
healthy and
Do you have
make
any
money.
final comments, Parrots? Is there?
No, if anyone wants to, has any questions, you can email. I wish you the best.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Yes, thank you, Paris, and thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope you enjoyed. If you have, a new question just popped up here. Should we take? Oh, thank you. Okay,
This is our first Q&A. Rebecca.
Yeah, she was just thanking you for
Okay.
your advice. Fine. So, Shakaya, thank you very much, everyone that's watching. I
All
want
the
to wish
best,
you
everybody.
a wonderful Yontif. Have a
Yes.
wonderful Shavuos, and yes, continued Haslacha. Please be in touch. And on behalf of again JCC Marine Park, EPI Emergency Panasha Initiative with Zisha Novoseller and CHYE, thank you all for coming. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out at any time. Haslacha u'bracha.
Amen. Thank you.